Hi guys, I'm back. Today I'm going to read 2 Kings 14 to 18, Psalm 124, and Proverbs 6. Let's get started. 2 Kings 14 to 18. Amaziah began to rule as king over Judah. It was in the second year that Jehoash was king of Israel. He was the son of Jehoahaz. Amaziah was the son of Joash. Amaziah was 25 years old when he became king. He ruled in Jerusalem for 29 years. His mother's name was Jehoadan. He was from Jerusalem. Amaziah did what was right in the eyes of the Lord, but he didn't do what King David had done. He always followed the example of his father Joash, but the high places weren't removed. The people continued to offer sacrifices and burn incense there. The kingdom was firmly under his control, so he put to death the officials who had murdered his father, the king. But he didn't put their children to death. He obeyed what is written in the book of the law of Moses. There the Lord commanded, parents must not be put to death because of what their children do. And children must not be put to death because of what their parents do. People must die because of their own sins. Amaziah won the battle over 10,000 men of Edom. It happened in the valley of Salt. During the battle, he captured the town of Sela. He called it Joktheel. That's the name it still has to this day. After the battle, Amaziah sent messengers to Jehoash, the king of Israel. Jehoash was the son of Jehoahaz, the son of Jehu. Amaziah said, "Come on, let us face each other in battle." But Jehoash, the king of Israel, answered Amaziah, the king of Judah. Jehoash said, "A thorn bush in Lebanon sent a message to a cedar tree there." The thorn bush said, "Give your daughter to be married to my son." Then a wild animal in Lebanon came along. It crushed the thorn bush by walking on it. It's true that you have won the battle over Edom, so you are proud. Enjoy your success while you can, but stay home and enjoy it. Why ask for trouble? Why bring yourself crashing down? Why bring Judah down with you? But Amaziah wouldn't listen, so Jehoash, the king of Israel, attacked. He and Amaziah, the king of Judah, faced each other in battle. The battle took place at Beth-shemesh in Judah. Israel drove Judah away, every man ran home. Jehoash, king of Israel, captured Amaziah, king of Judah, at Beth-shemesh. Amaziah was the son of Joash. Joash was the son of Ahaziah. Jehoash went to Jerusalem. He broke down part of its wall. It's the part that went from Ephraim gate to the corner gate. That part of the wall was 600 feet long. Jehoash took all the gold, silver, and objects that were in the Lord's temple. He also took all those same kind of things that were among the treasures of the royal house. And he took prisoners. Then he returned to Samaria. The other events of the rule of Jehoash are written down. That includes his war against Amaziah, the king of Judah. Everything he did and accomplished is written in the official records of the kings of Israel. Jehoash joined the members of his family who had already died. He was buried in Samaria in the royal tombs of Israel. Jehoash's son, Jeroboam, became the next king after him. Ahaziah, king of Judah, lived for 15 years after Jehoash, king of Israel, died. Amaziah was the son of Joash. Jehoash was the son of Jehoahaz. The other events of Amaziah's rule are written down. They are written in the official records of the kings of Judah. Some people made evil plans against Amaziah in Jerusalem, so he ran away to Lachish. But they sent men to Lachish after him. There they killed him. His body was brought back on a horse. Then he was buried in the family tomb in Jerusalem. the city of David. All the people of Judah made Uzziah king. He was 16 years old. They made him king in place of his father Amaziah. Uzziah did it. Uzziah rebuilt Elath. He brought it under Judah's control again. He did it after Amaziah joined the members of his family who had already died. Jeroboam became king of Israel in Samaria. It was in the 15th year that Amaziah was king of Judah. Jeroboam ruled for 41 years. Amaziah was the son of Joash. Jeroboam was the son of Jehoash. Jeroboam did what was evil in the eyes of the Lord. He didn't turn away from any of the sins that earlier Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, had committed. That Jeroboam had caused Israel to commit those same sins. Jeroboam, the son of Jehoash, made the brothers of Israel the same as they were before. They reached from Nebo Hamath all the way to the Dead Sea. That's what the Lord, the God of Israel, had said would happen. He had spoken that message through his servant Jonah. Jonah the prophet was the son of Amittai. Jonah also was from the town of Gath-Hepher. The Lord had seen how much everyone in Israel was suffering. It didn't matter whether they were slaves or free. They didn't have anyone to help them. The Lord hadn't said he would wipe out Israel's name from the earth. So he saved them by the power of Jeroboam, the son of Jehoash. The other events of the rule of Jeroboam are written down. What he and his army accomplished is written down. That includes how he what he and his army accomplished. That includes how he brought Damascus and Hamath back under Israel's control. Damascus and Hamath have belonged to the territory of Judah. Everything he did is written in the official records of the kings of Israel. Jeroboam joined the members of his family who had already died. He was buried in the broad tombs of Israel. Jeroboam's son Zechariah became the next king after him. Chapter 15. Uzziah began to rule as king over Judah. It was in the 27th year that Jeroboam was king of Israel. Uzziah was the son of Amaziah. Uzziah was 16 years old when he became king. He ruled in Jerusalem for 52 years. His mother's name was Jechiliah. She was from Jerusalem. Uzziah did what was right in the eyes of the Lord, just as his father Amaziah had done. But the high places weren't removed. The people continued to offer sacrifices and burn incense there. The Lord caused King Uzziah to suffer from a skin disease until the day he died. He lived in a separate house. His son Jotham was in charge of the house. Jotham ruled over the people of the land. The other events of the rule of Uzziah are written down. Everything he did is written in the official records of the kings of Judah. Uzziah joined the members of his family who had already died. He was buried near them in the city of David. Uzziah's son Jotham became the next king after him. Zechariah became king of Israel and Samaria. It is in the 18th year that Uzziah was king of Judah. Zechariah ruled for 6 months. He was the son of Jeroboam, the son of Jehoash. Zechariah did what was evil in the eyes of the Lord. He did what the kings of Israel before him had done. He didn't turn away from the sins Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, had committed. Jeroboam had caused Israel to commit their same sin. Shaul made evil plans against Zechariah. He attacked Zechariah in front of the people and killed him. Then he became the next king after him. Shaul was the son of Jabesh. The other events of the rule of Zechariah are written down. They are written in the official records of the kings of Israel. What happens to Zechariah is what the Lord said would happen. He had spoken that message to Jehu. The Lord had said, "Your sons after you will sit on the throne of Israel. They will rule until the time of your children's grandchildren." Shallum became the king of Israel. It was in the 39th year that Uzziah was king of Judah. Shallum ruled in Samaria for 1 month. He was the son of Jabesh. Menahem went from Tirzah up to Samaria. There he attacked Shallum, the son of Jabesh. Menahem killed him and became the next king after him. Menahem was the son of Gadi. The other events of Shallum's law are written down. Evil things he planned are written down. All these things are written in the official records of the kings of Israel. At the time, Menahem started out from Tirzah and attacked Tifsah. He attacked everyone in the sea and the area around it. That's because they refused to open their gates wide. He destroyed Tifsah. He ripped open all their pregnant women. Menahem became king of Israel. It was in the 39th year that Uzziah was king of Judah. Menahem ruled in Samaria for 10 years. He was the son of Gadi. Menahem did what was evil in the eyes of the Lord. During his entire rule, he didn't turn away from the sins Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, had committed. Jeroboam had caused Israel to commit those same sins. Then Tiglath-Pileser marched into the land of Israel. He was king of Assyria. Menahem gave him 38 tons of silver to get his help. He wanted to make his control over the kingdom stronger. Menahem forced Israel to give him that money. Every wealthy person had to give him 20 ounces of silver. All of it went to the king of Assyria. So he pulled his troops back. He didn't stay in the land anymore. The other events of the rule of Menahem are written down. Everything he did is written in the official record of the kings of Israel. Menahem joined the members of his family who had already died. Menahem's son Pekahiah became the next king after him. Pekahiah became king of Israel in Samaria. It was in the 50th year that Uzziah was king of Judah. Pekahiah ruled for 2 years. He was the son of Menahem. Pekahiah did what was evil in the eyes of the Lord. He didn't turn away from the sin Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, had committed. Jeroboam had caused Israel to commit those same sins. One of Pekahiah's chief officers was Pekah. He was the son of Remaliah. Pekah made evil plans against Pekahiah. He took 50 men from Gilead and killed Pekahiah. Pekah also killed Argob and Ariel. He killed all of them in the safest place, in the rock house of Samaria. So Pekah killed Pekahiah. He became the next king after him. The other events of the rule of Pekahiah are written down. Everything he did is written in the official records of the kings of Israel. Pekah became king of Israel in Samaria. It was in the 52nd year that Uzziah was king of Judah. Pekah ruled for 20 years. He was the son of Remaliah. Pekah did what was evil in the eyes of the Lord. He didn't turn away from the sins Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, had committed. Jeroboam had caused Israel to commit those same sins. During the rule of Pekah, the king of Israel, Tiglath-Pileser marched into the land again. He was king of Assyria. He captured the towns of Ejin, Abel-Beth-Maachah, Genoa, Kadesh, and Hazel. He also captured the lands of Gilead and Galilee. That included the whole territory of Naphtali. He also took the people away from their own land. He sent them off to Assyria. Then Hoshea made evil plans against Pekah, the son of Remaliah. Hoshea was the son of Elah. Hoshea attacked Pekah and killed him. Then Hoshea became the next king after him. It was in the 20th year of Jotham, the son of Uzziah. The other events of the rule of Pekah are written down. Everything he did is written in the official records of the kingdom of Israel. Jotham began to rule as king over Judah. It was in the 2nd year that Pekah was king of Israel. He was the son of Remaliah. Jotham was the son of Uzziah. Jotham was 25 years old when he became king. He ruled in Jerusalem for 16 years. His mother's name is Jerusha. She was the daughter of Zadok. Jotham did what was right in the eyes of the Lord, just as his father Uzziah had done. But the high places weren't removed. The people continued to offer sacrifices and burn incense there. Jotham rebuilt the upper gate of the Lord's temple. The other events of the rule of Jotham are written down. Everything he did is written in the official records of the kings of Judah. In those days, the Lord began to send Rezin and Pekah against Judah. Rezin was king of Aram. Pekah was the son of Remaliah. Jotham joined the members of the family who had already died. He was buried in the family tomb of the city of King David. Jotham's son Ahaz became the next king after him. Chapter 16. Ahaz began to rule as king over Judah. It was in the 17th year of the rule of Pekah, the son of Remaliah. Ahaz was the son of Jotham. Ahaz was 20 years old when he became king. He ruled in Jerusalem for 16 years. Ahaz didn't do what was right in the eyes of the Lord, his God. He didn't do what King David had done. He followed the ways of the kings of Israel. He even sacrificed his son in the fire to another god. He followed the practices of the nations. The Lord hated those practices. He had driven out those nations to make room for the Israelites. Ahaz offered sacrifices and burned incense at the high places. Yes, he did it on the tops of hills and under every green tree. Rezin and Pekah marched up to Jerusalem and surrounded it. Rezin was king of Aram. Pekah, the son of Remaliah, was king of Israel. They attacked Ahaz, but they couldn't overpower him. At that time, Rezin, the king of Aram, won back Elath for Aram. He drove out the people of Judah. Then the people of Edom moved into Elath, and they still live there to this day. Ahaz sent messengers to Tiglath-Pileser. He was king of Assyria. The messenger of Ahaz said, I am your servant. You are my master. Come up and save me from the power of the kings of Aram and Israel. They are attacking me. Ahaz took the silver and gold that were in the Lord's temple. He also took the silver and gold that were among the treasures in the royal palace. He sent all of it as a gift to the king of Assyria. So the king of Assyria did what Ahaz asked him to do. He captured the city of Damascus and captured it. He sent his people away to Kir, and he put Rezin to death. Then King Ahaz went to Damascus. He went there to see Tiglath-Pileser, the king of Assyria. Ahaz saw an altar in Damascus. He sent a drawing of it to Uriah the priest. Ahaz also sent him plans for building it. So Uriah the priest built an altar. He followed all the plans King Asa had sent from Damascus. He finished it before Ahaz returned. The king came back from Damascus. When he saw the altar, he approached it. Then he offered sacrifices on it. He offered up his burnt offerings and grain offerings. He poured out his drink offering, and he offered the blood from his sprinkle offering against the altar. The bronze altar for burnt offering stood in front of the Lord. It was between the new altar and the Lord's temple. Ahaz took the bronze altar away from the front of the temple. He put it on the north side of the new altar. Then King Ahaz gave orders to Uriah the priest. He said, "Offer sacrifices on the large new altar. Offer the morning burnt offering and the evening grain offering. Offer the burnt offering of all the people of the land. Offer the grain offering and the drink offering. Splash against this altar the blood from all the burnt offerings and the sacrifices. But I will use the bronze altar to look for advice and direction." Uriah the priest did just as King Ahaz had ordered. Ahaz cut off the sides of the bronze stands. He removed the bowls from the stands. He removed the huge bowl from the bronze wheels it stood on. He placed the bowl on a stone base. He took away the covered area that had been used on the Sabbath day. It had been built at the Lord's temple. He removed the wall entrance that was outside the temple. Ahaz did all these things to honor the king of Assyria. The other events of the rule of Ahaz are written down. Everything he did is written in the official records of the kings of Judah. Ahaz joined the members of his family who had already died. He was buried in the family tomb in the city of David. Ahaz's son Hezekiah became the next king after him. Chapter 17. Hoshea became king of Israel in Samaria. It was in the 12th year that Ahaz was king of Judah. Hoshea ruled for 9 years. He was the son of Elah. Hoshea did what was evil in the sight of the Lord, in the eyes of the Lord. But he wasn't as evil as the kings of Israel who ruled before him. Shalmaneser came up to attack Hoshea. Shalmaneser was king of Assyria. He had been Hoshea's master. He had forced Hoshea to bring him gifts. But the king of Assyria found out that Hoshea had turned against him. Hoshea had sent messengers to Sai, the king of Egypt. Hoshea didn't send gifts to the king of Assyria anymore. He had been sending them every year. So Shalmaneser grabbed him and put him in prison. The king of Assyria marched into the whole land of Israel. He marched to Samaria and surrounded it for 3 years. From time to time, he attacked it. Finally, the king of Assyria captured Samaria. It was in the 9th year of Hoshea. The king of Assyria took the Israelites away from their own land. He sent them off to Assyria. He made some of them live in Halah. He made others live in Gozan on the Habor River. And he made others live in the towns of the Medes. All of this took place because the Israelites had sinned against the Lord their God. He had brought them up out of Egypt. He had brought them out from under the power of Pharaoh, the king of Egypt. But they worshipped other gods. The Lord had driven out other nations to make room for Israel, but they followed the evil practices of those nations. They also followed the practices that the kings of Israel had started. The Israelites did things in secret against the Lord their God. What they did wasn't right. They built high places for worship in all their towns. They built them at lookout towers. They also built them at cities that had high walls around them. They set up sacred stones, and they set up poles used to worship the female god named Asherah. They did that on every high hill and under every green tree. The Lord had driven out nations to make room for Israel. But the Israelites burned incense at every high place, just as those nations had done. The Israelites did evil things that made the Lord very angry. They worshipped statues of gods. They did it even though the Lord had warned Israel and Judah through all his prophets and seers. He said, "Turn from your evil ways. Keep my commands and rules. Obey every part of my law. I commanded your people who lived long ago to obey it, and I gave it to you through my servants, the prophets. But the people wouldn't listen. They were as stubborn as their people of long ago had been. Those people didn't trust in the Lord their God. They refused to obey his rules. They broke the covenant he had made with them. They didn't pay any attention to the rules he had warned them to keep. They worshipped worthless statues of God. Then they themselves became worthless. They followed the example of the nations around them. They did it even though the Lord had ordered them not to. He had said, "Do not do as they do." They turned away from all the commands of the Lord their God. They made 2 statues of gods for themselves. The statues were shaped like coals. They had a pole used to worship the female god named Asherah. They bowed down to all the stars, and they worshipped the god named Baal. They sacrificed their sons and daughters in the fire. They practiced all kinds of evil magic. They gave up following God's rules. They did only what was evil in the eyes of the Lord. All these things made him very angry. So the Lord was very angry with Israel. He removed them from his land. Only the tribe of Judah was left, and even Judah didn't obey the commands of the Lord their God. They followed the practices Israel had started. So the Lord turned his back on all the people of Israel. He made them suffer. He handed them over to people who stole everything they had. And finally he threw them out of his land. The Lord took control of Israel away from the royal house of David. The Israelites made Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, their king. Jeroboam tried to get Israel to stop following the Lord. He caused them to stop. He caused them to commit a terrible sin. The Israelites were stunned. They continued to commit all the sins Jeroboam had committed. They didn't turn away from them, so the Lord removed them from his land. That's what he had warned them he would do. He had given that warning through all his servants, the prophets. So the people of Israel were taken away from their country. They were forced to go to Assyria, and that's where they still are. The king of Assyria brought people from Babylon, Cutha, Ava, Hamath, and Sepharvaim. He made all of them live in the towns of Samaria. They took the place of the people of Israel. They lived in all the towns of Samaria. When they first lived there, they didn't worship the Lord. So he sent lions among them, and the lions killed some of the people. A report was given to the king of Assyria. He was told, "You force people to leave their own home and live in the towns of Samaria, but they don't know what the God of that country requires." So he sent lions among them, and the lions are killing the people off. And that's because the people don't know what that God requires. Then the king of Assyria gave an order. He said, "Get one of the priests you captured from Samaria. Send him back to live there. Have him teach the people what the God of that land requires." So a priest went back to live in Bethel. He is one of the priests who had been forced to leave Samaria. He taught the people of Bethel how to worship the Lord. In spite of that, the people from each nation made statues of their own gods. They made them in all the towns where they had been forced to live. They set up those statues in small temples. The people of Samaria had built the temples at the high places. The people from Babylon made statues of the god named Sakos-Benos. Those from Cutha made statues of the god named Nergal. Those from Hamath made statues of the god named Ashima. The Avites made statues of the gods named Nibhaz and Tartak. The Sepharvites sacrificed their children in the fire to the gods named Adramelech and Anamelech. They were the gods of Sepharvaim. So the people of Samaria worshipped the Lord. But they also appointed all kinds of their own people to be their priests. The priests served in small temples at the high places. The people worshipped the Lord, but they also served their own gods. They followed the evil practices of the nations they had been taken from. The people of Samaria are still stubborn. They continue in their old practices to this day. And now they don't even worship the Lord. They They don't follow his directions and rules. They don't obey his laws and commands. The Lord has given all of these laws to the family of Jacob. He gave the name Israel to Jacob. The Lord made a covenant with the Israelites. At that time, he commanded them, do not worship any other gods. Do not bow down to them. Do not serve them or sacrifice to them. The Lord is the one you must worship. The Lord brought you up out of Egypt by his great power. He saved you by reaching out his mighty arm. You must bow down only to him. You must offer sacrifices only to him. You must always be careful to follow his directions and rules. You must obey the laws and commands he wrote for you. Do not worship other gods. Do not forget the covenant I made with you. And remember, you must not worship other gods. Instead, worship the Lord your God. He will save you from the powerful hand of all your enemies. But the people wouldn't listen. Instead, they were stubborn. They continued in their old practices. They worshipped the Lord, but at the same time, they served the statues of their gods. And to this day, their children and grandchildren continue to do what their people before them did. Chapter 18. Hezekiah began to rule as king over Judah. It was in the 3rd year that Hoshea was king of Israel. He was the son of Elah. Hezekiah was the son of Ahaz. Hezekiah was 25 years old when he became king. He ruled in Jerusalem for 29 years. His mother's name was Abijah. She was the daughter of Zechariah. Hezekiah did what was right in the eyes of the Lord, just as King David had done. Hezekiah removed the high places. He smashed the sacred stones. He cut down the poles used to worship the female god named Asherah. He broke into pieces the bronze snake Moses had made. Up to that time, the Israelites had been burning incense to it. They called it Nehushtan. Hezekiah trusted in the Lord, the God of Israel. There was no one like Hezekiah among all the kings of Judah. There was no king like him, either before him or after him. Hezekiah remained faithful to the Lord. He didn't stop serving him. He obeyed the commands the Lord had given Moses. The Lord was with Hezekiah. Because of that, Hezekiah was successful in everything he did. He refused to remain under the control of the king of Assyria. He didn't serve him. He won the war against the Philistines. He won battles at their lookout towers. He won battles at the cities that had high walls around them. He won battles against the Philistines all the way to Gaza and its territory. Shalmaneser marched to Samaria and surrounded it. It was in the 4th year of King Hezekiah. That was the 7th year of Hoshea, the king of Israel. Hoshea was the son of Elah. Shalmaneser was king of Assyria. At the end of 3 years, the army of Assyria captured Samaria. That happened in the 6th year of Hezekiah's rule. It was in the 9th year of the rule of Hoshea, the king of Israel. The king of Assyria took the people of Israel away from their own land. He sent them off to Assyria. He made some of them live in Halah. He made others live in Gozan on the Habor River. And he made others live in the towns of the Medes. These things happened because the Israelites hadn't obeyed the Lord their God. They had broken the covenant he had made with them. They had refused to do everything Moses, the servant of the Lord, had commanded. They hadn't paid any attention to those commands. They hadn't obeyed them. Sennacherib attacked and captured all the cities of Judah that had high walls around them. It was in the 14th year of the rule of Hezekiah. Sennacherib was king of Assyria. Hezekiah, the king of Judah, sent a message to the king of Assyria at Lachish. Hezekiah said, I have done what is wrong. Pull your troops back from me. Then I'll pay you anything you want me to. And the king of Assyria forced Hezekiah the king of Judah, to give him 11 tons of silver. Hezekiah also had to give him 1 ton of gold. So Hezekiah gave him all the silver in the Lord's temple. He also gave him all the silver among the treasures in the royal palace. Hezekiah, the king of Judah, had covered the doors and doorposts of the Lord's temple with gold. But now he had to strip it off. He had to give it to the king of Assyria. The king of Assyria sent his highest commander from Lachish to King Hezekiah at Jerusalem. He also sent his chief officer and his field commander along with a huge army. All of them came up to Jerusalem. They stopped at the channel that brings water from the upper pool. The channel was on the road to the watchman's field. The Assyrians called for King Hezekiah. Eliakim, Shebna, and Joah went out to them. Eliakim, the son of Hilkiah, was in charge of the house. Shebna was the secretary. Joah, the son of Asaph, kept the records. The field commander said to them, "Give Hezekiah this message. Tell him, Sennacherib is the great king of Assyria. He says, why are you putting your faith in what your king says? You say you have a military plan. You say you have a strong army, but your words don't mean anything. Who are you depending on? Why don't you want to stay under my control? Look, I know you are depending on Egypt. Why are you doing that? Egypt is nothing but a broken papyrus stem. Try leaning on it. It'll only cut your hand. Pharaoh, the king of Egypt, is just like that to everyone who depends on him. But suppose you say to me, we are depending on the Lord our God. Didn't Hezekiah remove your God's high places and altars? Didn't Hezekiah say to the people of Judah and Jerusalem, you must worship at the altar in Jerusalem? Go ahead and make a deal with my master, the king of Assyria. I'll give you 2,000 horses, but only if you can put riders on them. You are depending on Egypt for chariots and horsemen. You can't drive away even the least important officer among my master's officials. Besides, do you think I've come without receiving a message from the Lord? Have I come to attack and destroy this place without a message from him? The Lord himself told me to march out against your country. He told me to destroy it. Then Shebna, Joah, and Eliakim, the son of Hilkiah, spoke to the field commander. They said, please speak to us in the Aramaic language. If we understand it, don't speak to us in Hebrew. If you do, the people sitting on the city wall will be able to understand you. But the commander replied, my master sent me to say these things. Are these words only for your master and you to hear? Aren't they also for all the people sitting on the wall? They are going to suffer just like you. They'll have to eat their own waste. They'll have to drink their own urine. Then the commander stood up and spoke in the Hebrew language. He called out, pay attention to what the great king of Assyria is telling you. He says, don't let Hezekiah trick you. He can't save you from my power. Don't let Hezekiah talk you into trusting in the Lord. Don't believe him when he says, you can be sure that the Lord will save us. The city will not be handed over to the king of Assyria. Don't listen to Hezekiah. The king of Assyria says, make a peace treaty with me. Come over to my side. Then each one of you will eat fruit from your own vine of victory. Each one of you will drink water from your own well. You'll do that until I come back. Then I'll take you to a land just like yours. It's a land that has lots of grain and fresh wine. It has plenty of bread and vineyards. It has olive trees and honey. So choose life. Don't choose death. Don't pay any attention to Hezekiah. He's telling a lie when he says, the Lord will save us. Has the God of any nation ever saved his land from the power of the king of Assyria? Where are the gods of Hamath and Arpad? Where are the gods of Sepharvaim, and evil. Have they saved Samaria from my power? Which one of all the gods of those countries have been able to save this land for me? So how can the Lord save Jerusalem from my power? But the people remained silent. They didn't say anything. That's because King Hezekiah had commanded, "Don't answer him." Then Eliakim, the son of Hilkiah, went to Hezekiah. Eliakim was in charge of the palace. Shebna, the secretary, went with him. So did Joel, the son of Asaph. Joel kept the records. All of them went to Hezekiah with their clothes torn. They told him what the field commander had said. Proverbs 6. My son, don't promise to pay for what your neighbor owes. Don't agree to pay a stranger's bill. Don't be trapped by what you have said. Don't be caught by the words of your mouth. Instead, my son, do something to free yourself. Don't fall into your neighbor's hands. Go until you can't go anymore. Don't let your neighbor rest. Don't let your eyes go to sleep. Don't let your eyelids close. As a deer frees itself from a hunter, free yourself. As a bird frees itself from a trapper, free yourself. You people who don't want to work, think about the ant. Consider its ways and be wise. It is no command. It is no leader or ruler, but it stores up its food in summer. It gathers its food at harvest time. You lazy people, how long will you lie there? When will you get up from your sleep? You might sleep a little or take a little nap. You might even fold your hands and rest. Then you would be poor, as if someone had robbed you. You would have little, as if someone had stolen from you. An evil troublemaker goes around saying twisted things with his mouth. He winks with his eyes. He makes signals with his feet. He motions with his fingers. His plans are evil, and he has lies in his heart. He is always stirring up fights. Trouble will catch up with him in an instant. He'll suddenly be destroyed, and nothing can save him. There are 6 things the Lord hates. In fact, he hates 7 things. The Lord hates proud eyes, a lying tongue, and hands that kill those who are guilty. He also hates hearts that make evil plans, and feet that are quick to do evil. He hates any witness who pours out lies, and anyone who stirs up conflict in the community. My son, keep your father's command. Don't turn away from your mother's teaching. Always tie them on your heart. Put them around your neck. When you walk, they will guide you. When you sleep, they will watch over you. When you wake up, they will speak to you. Your father's command is like a lamp. Your mother's teaching is like a light. And whatever instructs and corrects you leads to life. It keeps you from your neighbor's wife. It keeps you from the smooth talk of a woman who commits adultery. Don't hunger in your heart after her beauty. Don't let her eyes capture you. A prostitute can be bought for only a loaf of bread, but another man's wife finds your very life. You can't shovel fire into your life without burning your clothes. You can't walk on hot coals without burning your feet. It's the same for anyone who has sex with another man's wife. Anyone who touches her will be punished. People don't hate a thief who steals to fill his empty stomach, but when he is caught, he must pay 7 times as much as he stole. It may even cost him everything he has. A man who commits adultery has no sense. Anyone who does it destroys himself. He'll be beaten up and dishonored. His shame will never be wiped away. Jealousy stirs up her husband's anger. He'll show no mercy when he gets evil. He won't accept any payment. He won't take any money, no matter how much he is offered. Psalm 124. Here's what Israel should say. Suppose the Lord had not been on our side. Suppose the Lord had not been on our side when our enemies attacked us. Suppose he had not been on our side when their burning anger blazed out against us. Then they would have swallowed us alive. They would have been like a flood that drowned us. They would have swept over us like a rushing river. They would have washed us away like a swollen stream. Give praise to the Lord. He has not let our enemies chew us up. We have escaped like a bird from a hunter's trap. The trap has been broken, and we have escaped. Our help comes from the Lord. He is the maker of heaven and earth. Now that's done, I shall now do the Lord's Prayer. Please bow your heads. Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us today our daily bread. Forgive us our debts as we have also forgiven our debtors. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from the evil one. For yours is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever. Amen. See you tomorrow. Bye.